amazing. We are going to have time to answer your question. So, Natasha, this is you.
Hallelujah. Leaders wenyu ni wa deep, si ndio? Pisha ameuliza swali paka mimi nikajifikiria mwenyewe. But why don't you just appreciate your leaders one more time? Show them some love. Say ututumia messages mingi kwa group. Mnaona amuajui, but now you know them, si ndio? So welcome your neighbor to another 4th round table hangout. Just welcome them. Muulize jina, you never know. Sitaki kusema #depopulate fort, but you never know. Just say hi to your neighbor. You might be talking to the next billionaire, umekaa tu hapo unamsalimia casually. You know, treat them well, say hi. All right? So karibuni sana to another round table. Fantastic, fantastic. Sasa kuna group pale imeanza story. Tumerudi sasa, tumerudi. But welcome to another 4th round table hangout. Haven't you guys missed Fort Sundays? Sindo, when was the last time we had a Fort Sunday? It's been a while. Yeah, so welcome to another round table hangout. We want to talk about mentorship. Sawa, mentorship. And we have an amazing speaker. When Dreamy said, welcome the panelists, Tabs and Tasha, kuna mtu alikuwa anafikiria guy, ni hao tu mko nao, CCC. We have an amazing speaker who's coming to help us dissect this topic. Sawa, so just tell your neighbor mentorship. Ask them if they have a mentor or whether they need a mentor, or they are all sufficient by themselves, right? So our speaker, allow me to just read his profile because it's heavy, hata siwezi sema mwenyewe, so that you know he's capable of handling the topic today. But our speaker today has studied aeronautical engineering at Technical University of Kenya. I was practicing to say that word yesterday, and it was just aeronautical, so that nisi mess. But he's also studied leadership at Ruby Leadership Institute. He's a content creator and the founder of TechEd Africa, which is a tech review company and tech hub with a social media presence across all social media platforms. He's a father, he's a husband, he's a mentor to many. He's also the pastor, he's also a pastor right here at Life Church LIMURU. He's an administrator. Yani, ile scripture ya all grace ni yeye, si ndio? So why don't you, with an understanding and with honor, why don't you just stand up as we welcome Pastor William to set. Come on, appreciate Pastor William. Haven't you guys missed him on the 4th space? Si ndio, miss ajakuwa huko for a while, si ndio? Yeah, so welcome Pastor William. Pastor William, karibu sana. You can have your seat. You can have your seat as well. You guys pray for me. The English that's about to be here, mniombe nisimes. Mkiona nimerudi sheng, it's fear of failing. But Pastor William, welcome so much. I forgot to say my name. My name is Natasha Musyoki. I'm from Team Blossom. How do you guys feel wearing our color? Us guys are very invested in today because of the color. You know, we feel like it's our day and you guys have come to just accompany us. But karibuni sana to this session. So Pastor William, let's just start. Tunajua tukianza, there was a question that was asked by Tabs, and she was asking people, or rather by ZP, she was asking people if there's a difference between a mentor, a role model, a father, a pastor, a teacher, a cover, all those things. And people didn't seem to be able to differentiate between those terms. Is there a difference between those terms? You can just, in fact, just say hi to us as we pick that question up.
Bwana asifiwe. Yeah, initially when I spoke to Pastor Kanjago, he told me I'm just talking to the leaders. Apparently I'm now talking to everyone in Fort, but it is good. Bwana asifiwe. When we look at, I think the biggest difference would be between a mentor, a cover or covering, a father, and a coach. And these ideally are different in every aspect. When we look at father and covering, we are talking spiritual. And, you know, that's when we go over to the spiritual perspective. But ideally, especially when it comes to fatherhood, fatherhood is not limited to the spiritual perspective. Because when you have a father, they are invested and connected to everything about you. That's why when you call someone your father, you're also saying, I'm giving you authority to step on any ground that you see fit concerning my life. That's why as a father, you not just be concerned about spiritual growth, you also be concerned about, are you growing financially? Are you, what's your personal development plan? Are you, what measure are you dating? How are you going about dating? And to be honest, if some of us were given opportunity, we would be all up in your business. Because at the end of the day, we have limited the pastoral to just things that are regarding to church. But ideally, one of the reasons why God gives us fathers or pastors in this case, these are people that are concerned about every aspect of our life, because the spiritual is connected to everything. And in the natural dimension, a father, you have two kinds of fathers. There's a father who birthed you, and there's a father who sired you. When you look at it spiritually, the father who gave birth to you is basically the person who ushered you into salvation. Ule mtu ambaye alikuombea ukookoka, ideally they are your father. But in our today context, we look at fathers as the people who have sired us. And these are the people who are daily walking with us, daily are pouring grace and everything to us. And many people differentiate between fathers and coverings, because there are people who have coverings who are not their father. And you can have someone who covers you in this case, or is above you in, and when we talk about covers, we're talking about people ideally who are in ministry. You're looking at someone who's above you, who's gone ahead of you, who's then therefore providing grace to shield you in the period that you are under them. But as long as you have a father, you don't need a cover, because a father can play the covering role, but a cover can never play fatherhood role. But now when we come into mentorship, now we come into what we call the open space. And a mentor, when we talk about friendships, we talk about people always ought to have friendships in 3 levels. The first level of friendship, these are people who are in the same level as you. These are people who you will pick stories with them, you will joke with them, you will laugh with them. Why? Because you relate with them on the same platform. But other than that, then you require to have people who are above you. And the reason why you always have people above you, number one, is so that they can challenge you not to settle. We normally say this: if you're around people that always celebrate you, you will never grow. A certain friend of mine used to give this example, and it makes a lot of sense. He had, in fact, there are 2 friends who carry almost the same story. One of them is our leader, Pastor T, and he said for one point, he got to a time where he had graduated from campus, he had gotten a car, and he was working at a certain NGO, and some of the people around him at that NGO were volunteers who were in high school, who were in campus. So anytime they go out, these volunteers automatically will look up to him. Why? Because tukienda pali wesi utalipa bill, you're the one who's working, you're the one who has a car. So for him, because he hung around so much around these people who are below him, he always looked at one point as, the epitome. This is where you need to get. And you see, the challenging thing with that is you never grow. Because if you always hang around people who are below you, you will never grow. Because to them, you're their savior. So you never do anything to develop yourself. And that's why you always need to hang around people who are above you. Now, when we go to people who are above you, then now the language of mentorship is introduced. Because there are people who are going to be above you, number one, in business, if you're doing business. If you're in career, then these are people who are above you career-wise. If you're, ideally, I'm talking to Ford. All of you are single. Because you're single, then you're looking forward to someone who's above you in marriage, who can model to you marriage, who can model to you how to handle marriage. So when we look at mentorship, we're looking at people that have gone above you in a certain aspect of sphere of life. And these are people who, number one, either are actively guiding you towards becoming that. And I normally say this, and I know some of us have mentors of people who we have never met. And that's why when you draw back to fatherhood, it's important to have a father that is really... One of the reasons why you have a father, a physical father, is he's approachable, he's relatable. So if you have a father who you have never met, you have never spoken to, then you can draw from his covering, but you don't get to fully experience his fatherhood because you don't know him and he does not know you. The same in mentorship. You, at times, yes, can have people that are way above you, but it's important to always have people who you can relate to and you can connect. Because if you're way over there, then how will I ever get there? If I don't get to follow in an instructed, guiding path. Because why do we need mentors? I know that's a question, but let me just answer it. We need mentors because there's a path that they have undertaken that is successful. And if I'm able to undertake that path, then I'm able to attain their success. Which means, if this is not someone who I can know about the path they took, then how will I get to their success? Because there's no relationship.
So mentorship, really, you're looking at the process.
And
taking the lessons from the process.
And yeah, definitely.
Wow, that's really well defined. I think it's very deep, especially when you talked about fathers and coverings. Probably I can just pick up from that point of fathers. Is it only restricted to the guys who are in ministry? In terms of active ministry, probably pastoral, people who are grooming to be pastors or ministers of the gospel, are they the only ones who need fathers?
No. Okay, let me demystify the concept of fatherhood. This whole concept of fatherhood wasn't there. It came about later as the church evolved. And right now, you know, it's a language. You go to every church, they say dad, mom, and all that. And we can draw the concept of fatherhood way back in the Bible from a very good example is Paul and Timothy. And he says, Paul, I call you. No, okay. Number one, what we call spiritual father. We only have one spiritual father, and that is God. God is the only father of our spirits. Because for you to father someone, then you need to be the same nature as that person. So, I can't have a child that's a cat. I can only have a pet that's a cat. So God is the only spiritual father, because we are spirits and we have been made by him, and then therefore we also look like him. So it's the only spiritual father. But what we have and what we call spiritual father is what we call the father according to the faith. And that's what Paul says. This is my son in accordance to the faith. Because now this is a person who's undertaking the responsibility to teach you and to model to you things concerning the faith that is Christianity. Now, when we go to that line, then therefore it means that it's not just people in ministry that need fathers. As long as you are in the faith, then you need a father.
Wow. That was a bonus point. Buy one, get one free. Haikuwa kwa topic, but you guys can thank me later for asking that. But that's really nice. I forgot to say that we'll be taking questions from the audience and from our live audience. So keep the questions coming. Whatever you want to ask the man of God. We are in an apostolic house, so the topic of fatherhood had to be discussed. But Prof or Pastor William, if there's one man who has walked with our father here, it's you. If we can track someone who has worked with Pastor Tim Wangi for a long time, it's actually, I don't know if many of you know, Prof met Pastor T when he was in high school. I hope sijachoma, high school or post-high school. Post high school, just post high school. So when he was a dancer, do you guys know Prof was a dancer? He's professionally, he's still a dancer, but mbona muamini? Tough uko na wimbo? Okay, I'm joking. But you met Pastor T a while back, and you've worked with him from when you were Willie the dancer to now you're Pastor William, and this growth. There were some photos which were shared. Media team come konazo, but don't just hold them. But how has that relationship been like, and what has that relationship? What has been the impact of that relationship to your life? Did you meet him and he immediately became your father or your mentor, or he was just a role model? How was that evolution to where you are at as per now? Sometimes you talk and we think it's Pastor T talking.
I actually went to a shop and I was buying something and the lady said, "Are you Pastor T?"
Wow.
I was tempted to say yes. I think I don't know, one of the leaders said one of the ways, it was who? I can't remember, but said one of the ways to best mentor is when you open, it was Sylvia, you open up your life. So maybe in a few minutes, let me just give you a brief story of how we met. That's myself and Pastor T. Okay, let me take it even how we met and then how we... this is, what, 2012? I was doing ministry.
Nilikuwa class 6. It's like, okay, so it was a joke. Take a joke.
All right. When I left high school, no, not in 2012. I'm backtracking the story so that I get to 2012. I had this desire to use talents as an avenue to serve God, because I had this. You know, I went to Kagumo High School. It's all the way up there in Kiganjo, in Nyeri, and I got to high school, and the only thing that the CU used to do when they go for funkies was choir. And they was like, this is so archaic. Yani, the only thing mnafanya, wanaume wazima wameokolewa na Bwana, the only thing you can do is to go and stand and presentation yenyu ni choir. And at that time I was like, I know there is more that we can give God in terms of using what he has given us to serve him. So we began dance. So I was and I went and introduced that concept in high school. That, by the way, tunaweza dance. Na ikuwe ni presentation na ni ministration. And you know, those were the days that akina nini were being formed, akina seekers. You know, all these teams, I've even forgotten them. Hao watu wenye tulikuwa tunawatchingi, all these now go to the gospel ones.
Nimeokoka bado.
And there were this team. There was a team from PCA Cow and Danny. There was another one from K West. All these were amazing. Those were the days that, you know, dance was conceptualizing as a form of expression in ministry. And I went to high school and I was the first Form 1 in a dance team that was filled by Form 3s. And you know, we began dancing. By the time we got to Form 2, the Form 3s were in Form 4, so they were leaving. So he said, how can we take this thing to the next level? And at that moment, I conceptualized the idea, why don't we use our talents as a platform to serve? So at that time, I was a dancer. There are people who, you know, were in art and all these things. And I remember we began getting so famous that people who were not saved began coming into the ministry. And, you know, we even got a name. We were the Chronics crew. And that created contention with the CU. Because one time we were supposed to go for a funky. And we couldn't go because in our team were people that were not saved. And the CU officials walikuwa mekataa kabisa. So I was like, if you guys can't be able to see the change that is happening in these people's lives, then I would rather quit the CU. So Chronics left. It became an entity by itself, and the CU ran. And what happened is I began seeing gradual change in these people's lives. There was a guy who was drawing gothic graffiti every single time. Ungempata vitabu zake ziko na makaburi, skeleton, manini. But after he began coming for the practice sessions, and what I used to do every time we had a practice session was an opportunity for me to also just share some word with them. And that happened. And this specific guy changed from doing that kind of graffiti towards doing crosses and began doing our first t-shirt designs and all that. So by the time I left high school, we had gone into like 10 different schools which you had branches. For us, going for Funkies was recruitment. Do you want to join this ministry? So when we left high school, I was now doing ministry. But you see, in the form of art, we're using art to serve God. So I joined in this pastor. He was very vibrant. He was the only pastor that I knew who was doing something similar. He was a singer. And we ministered together for some time. Heartbreaks came along the way. I left the ministry. We got another pastor. Now, this pastor was doing big things. He was doing the biggest high school annual camp at the end of every year. I learned a lot from things, but I also got heartbroken.
Character development.
Hey, Bana. Now, when I was with this pastor, that's when I met Mr. T for the first time, because then he was Mr. T. So we met when we were going to a school mission together. So yeye ndo alienda kupreach, but sisi because tulikuwa tumeitwa tulienda na yeye. So on the way we got to know one another, you know, we hung out and we were like, good, nimekujua, tumejuana, sawa sawa. So Mr. T used to come as a speaker to this camp that we were holding, and that's the match that we could interact. Stuff happened with this pastor again. I got even more broken. And I think I'd say this. For the first time, no, it might not be the first time in my life, but for one of my most lowest points in life was when I heard something that this pastor had mentioned. It was when he said, you know what, I know the potential that Prof has, and I will not allow him to become anything. And I tell you the truth, if you hear such a statement, you will leave. For sure. You will run for your life. So I was at a point in my life where I was hurt, sequence after sequence. Then I joined another ministry. You know, the thing about when you know what you want to do, you'll always find someone who needs what you want to do, and you'll always find yourself doing it again. And I went into this ministry again. Stuff happened. I left the ministry. By the time I was leaving the third ministry, I did not want anything to do with church. This was this was me. I know God, and God has not hurt me. But I know church, and church has hurt me. So I don't want church, I want God. So I'd always look for a place where I could go and just listen to the word. And just, you know, nibarikiwe tu. Juu sasa, kama ni knowledge, niko nayo. Reve nilikuwa nayo. But the being hurt was so much that I didn't want ministry. During that period, before I got to that place, we met Mr. T again. And this was when we were doing his video for Kama Nisa. I just saw people just posting the other day, TBTs, wakisema wanataka Mungu wa mili wa Jesus. And I remember there's a picture we took together. And Mili wa Jesus also happened to have been a member of the Chronics ministry then.
Wow, you guys knew that?
Yeah, there are many people, I thank God, that I've had the privilege of working with. You know, one of them, we started preaching to Laura Carrera when she was in Form 1 all the way till when she left Form 4. There's a man who's now doing active ministries called Damon Shunet. These are some of the people that God gave me the opportunity to work with them during their stages. So this point, I don't want anything to do with ministry. I have quit. And I remember that time, I went to, Damon had begun a fellowship. So Damon is one of the guys I'd raised, had begun a fellowship. And he told me, you know, just come and see what I'm doing. You know, you have worked with me for so long. Come, kuja ujue ile job nafanya. So I went. And that day, Pastor T happened to be the one who was sharing in the Bible study. So he sees me, I see him, I'm like, yeah, good. You're doing good. Story imeishia hapo. And then later, when he finishes, he finds us somewhere and says, you know what? So he started giving me this story about how he's at a place in his life where he's transitioning from high school ministry and he's feeling like he's going towards preaching to churches. And I'm there like, where are you going with this story?
Another ministry.
Yeah, and then he's like, I'm stepping out of the high school space, and I'm looking for people, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, please do not tell me that you want me to do anything connected to ministry. So he finishes the story. He does not ask me for anything, but he says, you know what? But later, coming to think about it, he was telling me, you know what? I'm looking for people that we can work together. But I was like, mimi na ministry sitaki. Please, I do not want ministry. So he says, you know what? I've just begun this fellowship that's happening every Tuesday. Not every Tuesday. It used to happen once a month, or was it once every fortnight? That's once every 2 weeks at Nasiko Chambers. And says, unaweza pitia uone. So me, remember, sikuwa na shida na Mungu, nilikuwa na shida na ministry. So I said, because this is an opportunity for me to go and just hear the word, let me go. So I went in, I sat in somewhere at the back. You know the way you don't, kama umekuwa hata na ministry, utaweza kukaa pale penye unaweza kuonekana. So I sat, and then Pastor T goes up to preach, and he says, hata naona prof. I'm like, Jehovah Jesus, please, please, please. He says, you know, prof, I know him as a pastor. I'm like, Jehovah Jesus. He says, you know, we've preached with him in schools. Which ones?
Man of God.
You know, at the root of it all, I was hurting, so I was projecting that hurt. But I remember him saying that. I'm like, man, nilikuwa nakuja mkutano, nipatane na Mungu, niende nyumbani. Now, all this, I do not want to know. And you know, as is custom, when hata mimi nikisema mtu ni pastor, tumepreach na yeye, the ushers will take him from the back and bring him to the front. That's what happened to me. And that was the longest, okay, I got blessed with the word, but that was the longest service I was. Because I was like, I really don't want ministry. Because I've been hurt. And you see, I'd practiced aeronautical engineering. I told myself, I'd studied, so I said, I can go and become, one of the things I'm passionate about is technology. So I was like, I go and can become anything else. I don't have to be in ministry. And I remember at that point, I do not know how, but I started going with him wherever he was going. So he would go to this school, I go there. He goes to this school, he goes there. But at my root was a lot of pain because of being hurt from different experiences in different ministries. And slowly as I began to walk with him, I realized there's something different about this guy. I'm like, okay, this is something different. This is something that I've not realized. This is something new. And unknowingly, some of these wounds began getting healed as I walked with him. And I remember that I was, for lack of a better word, when we met, like his PA, you would call him and not hear his voice, and you'd hear mine. So like, oh, see, prof, you know, if you don't hear him say, you go directly to prof. We got so close. He pulled me in, and at that point I decided to go in. And let's say the rest is history, because that was like 6 years ago.
Wow. Wow. I'm sure you guys have learned something new, right? But there's something that's quite consistent in that journey. And I think some people have experienced it, and it will just be good if we handle it. Heart, and church heart, and father heart, and mentor heart. Really, how did you rise from that? Because for some people, they've been hurt and left completely. How did you get out of that space? I think one of the things that really helped me is differentiating, and that really helps. You need to differentiate that it is a human being that has hurt me, and it is not God. See, what happens when most people get hurt? They quit everything together with God. And this is the truth, and I'll say this. We are human beings. There are times people will say things either that they mean, like in the case of I'll not allow him to become, or sometimes that they don't mean. And if we take some of those things personal, they will eventually hurt us. So for me, what really helped me, and I think I thank God for that, is I got to a place I said, you know what? Ni watu wameniumiza. Sio Mungu ameniumiza.
So as long as I find a place where he is genuinely exalted, I will go. And that's how I landed, by the way, in Gathering of Champions. Because I'm like, Mr. Tina najua na preachingi ukweli, na mi natafuta tu place, nezenda tu nibarikiwe. And that's what began the genesis of my healing. And I can't say there's steps that I personally took towards healing, but what I can say, for me, the line was separating that it is men who have hurt me, and it is not God who has hurt me. Because then that gives God the opportunity to minister to your heart. Because when you put God in the line of men, say, kanisa imeniumiza na Mungu wao, then that's how people leave church.
For sure. Wow. It came with an understanding, and you having to understand that it's men and not God. That's really deep. I think also, just to pick up another question from your story, you went through several ministries and several men of God before you found Pastor T. And someone is seated there and thinking, how do I identify my mentor? How do I identify my father? How do I come to that place? Do I just see this celebrity on TV and say, ni huyu? Ama piki piki ponki ni huyu? How do we come to identify our mentors? And probably in that line, who approaches who?
All right. Let's put it this way. There are two. How do I identify my mentor vis-a-vis how do I identify my father? Because those are two different. How do I identify your father? You pray about it. Because a father, there needs to be spiritual connection before there is any other kind of connection. And so then therefore if you're searching for a father, then the place you need to run to is God, and ask him, because you understand my destiny, who is best suited to bring out that destiny? And then the person that God, and you realize sometimes that connection comes out of you'll hear someone preach consistently, and you feel there's a connection between you and that person. You've never met, but you feel the message. There's a sync between that message and you. And that's one of the ways you know. And basically just praying and allowing God to lead you. There are people who I have encountered on different levels who told me, they were just strolling by. They went to different churches, they strolled by, they found themselves here, and all of a sudden they just felt at home. That peace is one of the ways that God speaks to us. There are people who are waiting for a loud voice. Shalom. That is your husband. Sometimes peace is one of the ways that God communicates to us. But now when we come to mentorship, how do you identify a mentor? Number one, what do you want to see? Who do you want to become? And then who has become what you have become? Because, if you're going to draw out potential from me, then it needs to be from a place of that you have been able to get there. And then now, not only are you identifying a mentor because they have gotten to where you want to get to, but number two, someone who's willing to open up their lives to do that. In school, there's a unit on leadership we study that's called leading from a point of weakness. And most of the times, what we show people are our stars. Show them this. And that's one of the reasons why we have a challenge with the right now buzz with influencers and social media people. They show us the stars, but none of them get to show us the destination it took from where they were to where they want to go to. And therefore, then because of that, then there's nothing for me to learn from you. Because the only thing that I will become is I'll become a fan. Because there's a difference between a mentee and a fan. A fan is someone who celebrates what someone else has done. But a mentee is someone who's actively learning from someone through what they are displaying to them. So how do you identify a mentor? Number one, you have to ask yourself, where do I want to go? And now he said, remember, you can have mentors. You can have many mentors. You can never have many fathers, but you can have many mentors. So you need to identify, maybe in business, who's doing business the way I want to do business? If it's career, who has become that person that I want to be? And then can I be able to maybe speak with them so that they can be able to help me direct a certain career path. If it is in marriage, who models for me marriage? You know, and at times even goes to the level of knowing, who has gone through what maybe you have gone through, and you can be able to relate. They can be able to relate with you. Mm-hmm. So the idea is, can you know where you want to go, and then now find someone who has gone where you want to go, or someone who is going in the way that you are going, but is ahead of you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's deep. Are we learning? Are we learning on our 2 notebooks, pages in a flip? Tumefika page 4, your notes, right? But it's really deep. Probably just to recap that you could have mentors in different spheres, so whether business, whether career, whether, can you have a mentor spiritually? Ama huyo ni father?
No, again, you can have, you ought to have a father as long as you're born again. But there are times, let me give you an example. There are churches where they are so big, you don't have access to the senior pastor. But there are people that you have access to who have access to that pastor. So, for example, here in Life Church, we have Apostle T, who's our father. But under Apostle T, we have like 10 pastors. So you can decide, I might not be able to get to Apostle, but I can talk to Pastor Kanjagwa. And anytime I speak to Kanjagwa, he's able to relay with me and speak with me. Now, when you even come to Fort on a personal level, you can realize that there is Pastor Kanjagwa who is, leading the ministry, but you can identify someone who has gone ahead of you, and you can decide to walk with that person so that they can shape and draw from you the things that, there are things you can look at someone and says, this is a person who loves prayer. I don't know how to pray, or I don't pray the way he prays. Maybe as I walk with him, I will rub or connect the spirit of prayer. At that moment, there's something specific that you're going for. The same way you're just saying mentorship, there's something specific you want to draw. Maybe there's someone in Fort who is good with the word. And say, you know what, let me just walk with this guy, let me get his understanding. So at that level, yes, you can have one, but ideally, all of you are just working towards one goal because you're under one covering.
Wow. So you need to identify what you want in someone, right? Then, or in the field that you need mentorship on, and follow them. So I don't know if we have burning questions in the crowd. It doesn't have to be burning. Usikwe na pressure. Do we have any questions from the crowd before we continue? We want to hear from you. There's one right there. Wow. You can just stand. Tell us your name, where you're calling us from. Unatuma salamu kwa no. Just tell us your name and what your question is.
Hi guys, how are you? My name is Chabaya. My first time in Fort Round Table.
Wow.
And I'm very happy to be here.
Simumkaribisha. Tunakuanga friendly, ni vile wako deep.
Okay. I love your story, Prof. Very inspiring and very vulnerable. But I have one question for you. It's obvious that sometimes we go through pain in church, yeah? It can be from our leaders, maybe from our boyfriends in church, our girlfriends in church, yeah? I just want to understand, do you have a place for mental health in church? Would you advise the crowd at one point to seek psychological services if they need to?
Okay. There are different ways I can go about that. Number one is the way the world looks at mental health right now, because you see, there is the normal functioning state of someone's spirit or their soul. And depression or anything that tries to get you down from that normal state, ideally is suppressing your soul and your spirit. And there are people who their source of depression is bordering in the lines of demonic. But let me not go to that. Let's talk about someone who maybe has gone through pain, who has been left. Bwana asifiwe. Number one, I said we need to have friends in different levels, right? Someone who's gone ahead of you and someone who is with you in the same level. And part of the reasons why we ought to relate socially on a lateral line is so that there are things that you can speak with to someone. And sometimes, okay, there are many ways we talk about being able to release what someone is going through. Number one, there are people who just want to be heard. You get. And from that level, you're just looking for someone who will just listen to you and say you pour out all your troubles, because you realize some of the things that lead us to depression can be resolved if they are addressed. But most of the times, because they're not addressed, then we enter depression and we stay depressed. And one of the ways to handle, most of depression will come out from emotional trauma, and at times from mental trauma. When we talk about emotional trauma, then one of the ways to express emotions is to speak about them. And then in this case, you can look for someone who is in the same level if you just are looking for someone to talk to. But if you need counsel, then you look for someone who is and that's why it's good to have a mentor and in this case, people who relate with you as fathers, because this is someone who's concerned about your entirety. Let me share something that is very, that has helped me for a very long period of time. There are 3 levels where we engage with people. And this we're talking about friends. There are people who come into our life as constituents. Now, constituents are basically in your life because of what you are giving them. Which means the day you stop giving them what you're giving them, they stop being your friend. Bwana asifiwe. And that's why when you read some of the things that are going on social media, people say, you know what, when I got broke, people left me. They were not there because they were interested in you. They were there because you were giving them money or something. Are we together? And the reason why at times we end up getting hurt is because we invest in the wrong kinds of people. So they are constituents. Then we also have comrades. Bwana asifiwe. Now, comrades are people who are in your life because you guys are serving the same purpose. So there are people who you are together with, maybe in campus, because you are in campus together. I mean, how many of you here are still friends with your high school friends? And how many of them? The word is how many. Tukienda sana wawili, watatu. Si ni kweli? But ukiwa high school, ulikuwa na marafiki wangapi? Karibu class yote mzima ilikuwa, you had classmates, you had dorm room mates, you had wale mlikuwa mnakula meza moja. You get? But now you're not friends. Why? Because the purpose that you were serving together has ended. The same way, I tell you the truth, if today you are to stop coming from this church, there are people who are your friends who you will never talk to again. Because there are stories that you have in common because of the same environment, and you will cease to have those stories. Like, leo word ilikuwa, sasa mtaongea kuhusu words ngapi. Yeye alipreachiwa kitu kingine, wale alipreachiwa kitu kingine. Are we together? But then we have confidence, which is the 3rd level of interaction. And confidence, rarely you'll ever find to have more than 5 or 10 in this level. These are people who are there for you, not because of what you're giving them, not because of a purpose that you're serving together, but they are there for you for who you are. Are we together? These are people who will give it to you raw when you need raw advice. These are people who will tell you to shape up when you want to hear otherwise. Bwana asifiwe. And these are people who are in your life for you. Now, the reason why you need to identify your confidence is because these are the people that you can talk to about some of these things. Because you need to have someone who can say, you know what, leo nataka tu tuongee. And you pour yourself out. Are we together? And in pouring yourself out, then you're able to maybe pray about it or take action points concerning it. Are we together? You need someone who can say, you know what, by the way, I've been struggling with X, Y, Z. This is not something you can go and tell your pastor maybe because you're ashamed, but this is someone you can tell them, by the way, si unanipenda kwa sababu ya niko na hii struggle. And this is someone who, because they understand you, can come and rescue you out. If you end up in a wrong relationship, they will tell you, dude, leave that relationship. Because najua, you get me? So you need someone you can be vulnerable to, so that in the case where there are things that are going to hurt you and they come, you're able to talk to them about it. And you see, for me, one of the things that really helped me deal with the pain is I had someone who, at that point in life, Pastor T was like, yes, he was ahead of me, but he was like my buddy. I would talk to him. And I told him all these stories that have happened to me. And you know what? He was there for me.
Wow. Wow. So that brings us to another topic, but I don't know, probably one last question. One last question as Pastor just takes a sip of the juice. Sip props. Kukua hapa juu ni mzuri. One last question. Amuna swali? One last question. Our online audience is on fire. We are live at Life Church Limuru, Pastor T. Mwangi on Facebook and Life Church Limuru on YouTube. And we are getting great comments. We have Liz, we have Jerry, Faith, shout out to you all. Great conversations, great comments. People are loving this, right? So is there one? Awesome. We can take that up. You can just tell us your name. Unasalimia nani na your question.
Well, I think today I'm asking so many questions, but yes, I want to ask, can you have mentors in season? Do you have like permanent mentors, or with time, una drop huyu, then you pick another mentor? And then another question someone has texted me to ask from home is like, in a setup like this one, is it like right to force mentorship? Like now, I want to force mentorship on someone. I'm saying, like, what is the parameter? Well, someone might be well-meaning. Maybe they have seen potential, but is it like, I don't know what they meant by asking, forcing mentorship on people.
All right. I'm going to answer those questions as I also answer what Natasha asked concerning who approaches who. Okay, what was the first question? The first question was? Oh, seasonal. Yes,
seasonal mentors.
yes, you can have seasonal
Maybe
mentors.
also add, can you outgrow your mentor?
Definitely. Okay. Seasonal mentors. Let's come back to our discussion on mentorship. If there is something that you're drawing from that person, it means that there will come a time where you don't need what you're drawing anymore. You get me? Like, for example, let me give you an example. Kevin does designs. You get? Kevin loves the way I do designs. So I will work with Kevin, but there's going to come a time that Kevin will get to where I am or better. And at that level, it means that he has no need of me anymore. And you get me? And because that relationship was for me to help, because what's the primary work of a mentor is to help you get to his level, if not better. So if you get to that level, then clearly you don't have need of them anymore. But now listen, you might not have need of them anymore, but that does not mean you disrespect them, because that's what happens. That's the folly, that when you think you have now come to the same level. You know, Jesus even says, when he speaks to the disciples, he says, can a blind man lead another blind man? He says, certainly yes, because they'll both fall into a ditch. And then he addresses the matter of teachers. And then he says, you know, can you be equal with your teacher? Which means that there's a place where investment can be done in you until you're at par with the one doing that investment. But at that level, even though you will need another one to get you to the other level, does not mean that you disregard the one that has. Even the same way with fatherhood. Some of you will become greater than your physical fathers, and as similar, become greater than your spiritual fathers. But never at any one point will you disregard them because were it not for them, you would not be where you are. You get? Wow. So yes, you can have seasonal mentors because there are things that you're looking for in your life at a particular time. Are we together? So because of that, then you can have, maybe someone who to get you to level A, then once you've got it on that level, get someone to get you to level B. So you can have you can have a mentor to work with you trans-seasonal, but you can also have someone to work with you for a particular time because there's a particular thing that you intend to draw from that person. Now, number 2, you don't force mentorship. Because this is a game of willing buyer, willing seller. The same way you say you can take a donkey to the watering hole, but you won't force it to take water. If I force mentorship on you, it means that you are not willing to do what I will ask you to do. And if you're not willing to do it, then it means that the result that even I, as a mentor, want to see will not be achieved. However, if you're under a father, they have, when you're under a father, you have given them some right to some extent to come and draw areas of potential in you that they see that you don't even realize. You get? And that's because, number 1, you're already relating with this person as a father. Or if you have a mentor and there's an area that they're beginning to draw from, it means that there's potential that they are seeing. And at times you might be unwilling to see that, but the more you draw out from that. Let me give you an example. When I met Pastor T, I was burning with revelation. I've been a Reve guy from Kitambo.
Walking Bible.
I had come from theology practice when I met Pastor T. So I was like, he normally jokes and says, hizo siku alikuwa na preach akiniangalia. I was the theology meter. So that if I nod, anajua me preach vizuri. And you know what? And I'd sit down and at that time I was not checking his theology. I was just waiting to be blessed. But maybe because I studied theology, amesema amen, bas, hiyo ni point. But when I got to the ministry, I had the wing of word right. But the prayer one was lacking. I'd pray, yes, but I'd just pray. And I remember one time, we had just begun the mountain experience, and we went and we prayed. I prayed like I never prayed before. And at that point, he said, "You know what? That I am so glad that when you came in, you had this word right. But now I can see that the prayer engine has begun running. And when you mix those two, you're going to be explosive." Which means there is potential that he saw in me. And because of the permission I had given him, because of what he was to me, he could draw that out of me. But you see, he couldn't, I couldn't go to, someone else okay, let me put it this way. That he couldn't force me if he didn't have the authority over me to bring me out in that line. So you can't force. You can't come and tell you from today I will be your mentor. You need to be doing these 5 things, But the individual who is seeking to be mentored is the one that can come and say, "You know what?" And you see, you can't there's the place where maybe you can realize potential in someone and you want to help them, but you can't tell them, "I must do it." The best that you can do is point it out. Say, "By the way, if you do X, Y, Z, I think you're gonna," you get. And there has to be a permission. Anytime it says 2 cannot walk together. This 2 is any form of relationship, be it mentorship, be it marriage, be it dating, be it courting, whatever it is. 2 cannot walk together unless they agree. So if there's one party who's forcing, then there's no agreement. So the one who maybe wants to mentor should propose and let the party being mentored accept. But in many cases, it's the party that is. And let me tell you this. Many of us at times, we wait for the one who's mentoring us. Now I'm talking to people who are in a mentorship kind of relationship, who are many of us are looking or are waiting for our mentors to get us time. We are waiting to be called. "Hey, by the way, come, let's have a discussion." But in most cases, if you're the one being mentored, you're the one who knows what you're seeking for. Which means, at that level, it is you who's supposed to look for your mentor and look for opportunities where you can sit with your mentor so that they can work with you. So it's for you to look, I need to get time with this person so that there is something that I can draw from them. It's not, you don't always have to wait for them to come. Some of us, that's how we get hurt in mentorship, because we're thinking, yeah, ndo nafaa kunitafuta. But if you're the one being mentored, wewe ndo unafaa kufanya nini? Because in many times you realize even the one who's mentoring you is being mentored by others. So him is busy looking for his mentors. So you also need to be busy looking for him or her. So those three questions. Number one, yes, you can have seasonal mentors. Number two, let there be consent always, regardless. That even when you're going to ask someone to mentor you, let them agree towards mentoring you. Because at times you can also force mentorship in that you have to mentor me. You have to mentor me. But in most cases, it does not have to be the case.
Wow, that's deep, yeah? Yeah, so something he has pointed out, mentors see the potential in you and help to draw it out. Sasa, someone quoted and said that what experienced or what the wise learn from mentorship, fools have to learn through experience. So you don't have to go through experience to learn something, right? So just as I go to my my last two questions, Isai, tunataka swali kutoka kwenyu. You guys are looking cool, calm, collected, VIP, VVIP. Just prepare a question for us. We'll handle it. But Prof, you've talked about the nature of the mentorship relationship. You've talked about accountability. You've talked about proximity. I don't know, what else can you talk about that nature or that picture of the relationship? Because sometimes people identify and say, Pastor William is my mentor, but you never reach out to Pastor William. You're just happy that you have access to Pastor William. You can say hi to him on Sunday, but you really don't get to benefit from that relationship. I don't know, how does that picture of a good mentorship or mentorhood relationship look like?
I know there are many people who have mentors, CIA, under the water. There are things you look in them and you like those things and you connect to those things. But if we are talking about mentorship, then there has to be relationship, because I can see it and like it, but I don't know what it has taken to be it. Mm-hmm. And for me to know what it has taken to be it, then I have to go and seek to know. And that seeking to know is in the active relationship. And then again, we can have as many mentors as you want, because there are different things you're picking from these individuals. But if you want to take mentorship to the next level, then there has to be that place where there is communion. Because this is the most interesting thing about mentorship relationship, is that everyone is learning from each other. In as much as I'd be mentoring someone, that there is something that they can do or say that will also be a lesson for me. And that's why communion is important. So I don't just leave it at someone else is my mentor, blah, blah, blah. Like for me, I don't have many mentors. Why? Because I've realized that many things I need are in people who are around me. And I know, yeah, there are people who are great. They are great, even orators and all that. But I've tried to restrict my circle so that even in my mentorship, my goals are achievable. Because some of us have unachievable goals that we have unreachable mentors. But if you have someone who you can reach to, let me give you an example. T.D. Jakes is a very good orator. When I was growing up, I wanted to be like T.D. Jakes. Mm-hmm. But I cannot meet T.D. Jakes. The much that I can do is to watch his sermons, but I don't even know what he does on a daily basis to be who he is. So that means the only thing I have is someone who I look up to, but can never be. Mm-hmm. You get me? And that's why, I decided to narrow down my circle so that I can have goals that are achievable. Like right now, one of the people that I'm really looking forward to in the teaching ministry is Pastor Mark. He is articulate, and he's slow, and he drives the point home. And I'm saying, you know what? And you see, Pastor Mark is someone I can reach to. I can reach out to and have a conversation with him and draw from him. You get me? But if my goals are unachievable, then they are, I'll have unreachable mentors. So one of the things about what would define a healthy mentorship relationship is the element of communion. that we can communicate, that I can hear. Because then again, you don't want to have a mentor who tells you something and you don't do it. Then why are you in that relationship? If there is no respect and authority, then there's no need to be in that relationship. Because, you know, you don't just go to someone because they're doing something that you want to do and tell them, I want you to be my mentor.
Wow.
Because it means that there is no respect and honor that has gone towards that kind of relationship. And so there's communion. Definitely there has to be the level of accountability. You need to be accountable. And in the accountability, you're being accountable, or accountability is happening in 2 levels. Now I said there are 3 levels of relationships you're always going to have. The same level, above, but the relationship that you're going to have with people who are below you. Now, what's the importance of relationships with people who are below you? This is the importance, that these people will help you shape up. If you know there's a young sister below you who's looking up to you, if you know there's this guy from church who's always looking up to you and all these things, what that does, it helps you come into a form where you're always responsible because you know someone is looking up to you. And that's where the accountability comes, in that you are looking up to your mentor, you're speaking with them, you're telling them what's going down, but they are being accountable in responsibility so that they show you the path. So accountability is important, communion is important, communication, that's in communion, that's very important. Basically those are some of the things that are very important in any mentorship relationship.
Wow, that's really profound. I think from my own journey, what I've seen about mentorship is what would have taken me 10 years to learn. Probably I want to learn tech from Pastor William. He can say something and summarize it in 1 sentence. What would have taken me 10 years to learn? You know, I'd have gone to books and read. But if I sit with Pastor William over coffee and he mentions that thing, you know, it would have sorted me out. So that's also another picture that I've seen through mentorship. Probably just one last question from the audience, then shall be wrapping it up. So our VIP section is awake. Yes. Hi.
Hi. Saseni. So naitwa Beverly Bev. So mi wacha niwarudishe kwa shen kiasi, ngoso kuna vile.
Usikuwe na pressure.
Sina ngori. Sa liko na swali moja hapa. Najua si wote ni ma-youth men hapa. And a lot of us like tuna struggle na hiyo story ya relationship mostly. Like just finding people you can connect with. Alafu najua tunaongelelea mentorship pia. Like a lot of us can struggle hiyo part ya how do I look for mentors. Najua umejibu ways in how we can find mentors. And I know that kuna that struggle, like there are the social people and kuna introverts, kuna extroverts. Kuna hiyo 2 point ya kutoka nje kwanza kutafuta mabeshte, kuna hiyo point ya kutoka nje kutafuta mentors. Like kuna hiyo struggle for most of us. Najua sahi tusha conclude that we need mentors and everything, but kuna wasi wana struggle na hiyo part ya nitatoka aje kwa hao, nianze kutafuta mentors ama hata beshte mwenyewe sina, unaona? Like sina hata beshte wa kuongeleshea what I'm going through or the issues I'm going through. Like how can you address an issue like that? Because sasa inajua tumeconclude kila mse anafaa kuwa na mentor, but atujongelele hiyo part ya there are people who are really struggling even to go out there to look for friends.
Wow. Kuna watu wamerelate, kuna mtu amekuwa nimekuwa nikimgoja. Thank you. Umnunulie chai after this. One more question? Yes, let's take one more question. It's burning.
No, it's not burning, but Bwana asifiwe.
Amen.
My name is Edwin. I don't know whether I'm in fort, but I thank God I'm here.
Young at heart.
I'm very young, but physically and at heart. Now, Pasi, you see, like any other relationship, they have beginnings and ends. Now, you've approached this mentor. You've said there's a stage you can outgrow a mentor. There are people, like there's a man I really honor whom I worked with as my former boss, and he does not know how to tell people no. So he ended up giving so many people chances in the company, people he never needed. Then he'll just find a way of frustrating you mpaka ujitoe mwenyewe. Now, you have a mentor this relationship has been working, or maybe it's like my former boss, you've realized huyu jamaa yenye hayuko kwa hii kitu. How or what is the best way to end a mentorship relationship? Do you walk to this person and say, "Hey, niaje mzae, nimeishia."
Tumetoka mbali lakini safari yetu imeishia hapa.
You know, because again, it's not, we can't assume that everybody here does not have a mentor. There are guys who have mentors, but then how, or what would be the best way to walk out of a mentorship relationship? Thank you.
All right. Let me answer both questions. Number one, you guys all know that there are different personality types. You know, there are introverts, there are, extroverts, there are introverted extroverts and extroverted introverts. So all of these people exist. And I think at the core of what we are talking about today is as simple as this. If you need something, it does not, I want to use these words lightly. If you need something, it does not matter what personality you have, you're going to go and get it. Are we together? And this is where there's a place of openness in relationships. If you're not the kind of a person who's outgoing, and maybe there's someone who you have identified that you want, to draw and learn and glean something from them, but you're not the outgoing type. That's one of the things that you tell them when you meet them. Be bold enough to take the first step, because there are people who, I can't, for example, I can't look at someone and think they need mentorship, because even in the place of counseling, for me, I don't counsel people to tell them what to do. I bring them to a place where they decide what to do, so that the decision is not pastor said, it's not prof said, it's I have decided this is what I'm going to do because this is the best outcome. You get? So I can't decide for someone that they need mentorship. Bwana asifiwe. If I was to decide, then maybe most of you I'd be mentoring you. Bwana asifiwe. But it's for the individual that wants. Even if it's going to be the first move you'll ever make, brace yourself, prepare for weeks in your house, but go and say, you know what, I really need you to mentor me. And at times, if your personality is not the extroverted type, you can even go to lengths, look for their contact, look for their email. Kama huwezi meet in person, mwambie mimi yenyewe, hii ndio shida yangu. I'm introverted. I don't know how to go out, but I really want you to walk with me in that case. So I'd encourage you, the first meeting, be the one that initiates it. Because he that calls the meeting, runs the meeting. So for that first time, tell them, by the way, my name is Bev. You know what, I'm giving an example. I'm not saying introverted. Najua naitwa Bev, mimi nakuanga introvert na kuanga mshy, lakini kuna kitu nimecheki ndani yako yenye nataka unihelp. Mimi nakuanga hivi, so don't expect me to reach out, lakini mimi na desire utembe tu na mimi, and make it as simple as that. There are people I reach out to, they don't reach out to me, because I know if I wait for them to reach out, heaven will come down. You get? And because I know that's how they are. Because you see, mentorship, for me in this case, we are talking about mentorship and mentors, but I've talked more about what the mentee needs to do, but there are also the responsibilities of the mentor to the mentee. That's why Jesus says, none that you have given me have I lost. Why? Because there is a response. If I was talking to mentors, if this was TOT, it would completely be different on another perspective. Because some of you have failed as mentors of others. But anyway, there are responsibilities that the mentor has to those who he is mentoring. Are we together? And then now, even in responsibilities, now to what Edwin has asked, there are times as a mentor, I might realize that what I have to offer this individual, I have exhausted. And my responsibility as a mentor is to tell them, at this level, I can't take you beyond here. So maybe let me connect you with someone who can take you beyond where I'm at. Are we together? So there's that place where the mentor has a responsibility to those whom he's mentoring. But then there's the place where if I called the meeting, now let's back here. I called the meeting, I told you I wanted mentorship. I said these are the areas that I'm looking forward up to you. And I feel that those areas are done. Same way, I call you back for a meeting. I thank you for all that you have done for me. I thank you for all that you have taught me. And I tell you now, bless me and let me go. Are we together? Because there's that place where you're going to get mature people who will call you and tell you, I think you may exhaust level. We're talking about mentorship, not fatherhood. Sindio, fatherhood is a whole complete ball game. And in this case, you just tell them, I think I have learned everything. Please, let me move on to the next class. Some of you are still being taught by your class 1 teacher. No, Cynthia. When class 1 ended, you migrated, you went to class 2. You got another teacher in class 2. Are we together? The same way, when you have a mentor who's teaching you for a certain period of time, when that time elapses, you're free to go and tell them thank you, to appreciate their work, then to move on to the next one. And that's it. When it comes to fatherhood, it's a different ball game, because there are, the same way, there has to be an approach at the end of the day. Because if you are under a certain church, you're transiting from that church to go to another. You can't be in one church and your father is in another church. Leave that church you're in, go to the church that your father is there. What are you doing in that church? Anyway, if you are transiting from one church to another church and God has spoken to you, in the same way, just go. Now, the reason why I'm saying fatherhood is a different ball game is some of you will go and you will not be released. Does not mean you stay. Just look, be the bigger person. Just ask politely. If there is refusal, then you've done your part.
Wow.
Then you leave.
Ghost mentors mkimalizana now. But also probably just to add something to what Bev had asked, I've also realized, someone said that the proof of desire is pursuit. So you have to be so hungry to want something from this person that you've identified, and you'll follow them, right? So final question, sir. This is like my 6th final question. Niko kwa altar, so the pastor is coming out. But final question to you, Pastor William. In your journey of mentoring other people, and shout out to the guys you mentored at TechEd, we see the good job they're doing. You've mentored many in tech, in ministry. What is that one mistake you've seen mentees make?
I think let me point out a few. The first one, you will always come across mentors who open themselves up to you. And in opening themselves up to you, there's a lot of stuff that you know about them. And the first mistake mentees do is they become familiar with their mentor. What that does, number one, it cuts off any flow of grace. Because at the end of the day, the reason why you've gone to a mentor is because there's something they are better than you for. So it cuts down any grace or any flow from them to you. Familiarity. That you think now, ninakujua. You get me? And I can now disregard you, I can disrespect you. That cuts off anything. And that's why, at all costs, that's why I said, even the day you become greater than your mentor, never disrespect them. Because there's input they give. It's like this building saying it does not need the first rock that it's standing on. It will be foolish. Even though it's gone up, it still needs that rock. So no matter how high we rise, even in the scope of whatever we are doing in life, never disregard the people who made you. And that for me is the first primary mistake people do. You become familiar. So you either get into a place of disrespect, or you now think because you've known a couple of bad things about them that now they no longer are suitable enough to teach you.
Wow.
I think let me just use that one.
For more points, for follow prof. Haven't we learned? That was amazing, right? That was deep. Can you imagine 1 hour has gone, 1 hour and some minutes? My producer is just sending me text. It's time. But you guys have learned, right? Simpigie basi makofi. Yeah, so before you give your parting shot, it's been a serious, intense session. Just have an icebreaker question for you. Situlize. An icebreaker, sindio? At least to lighten up the mood a bit. Prof, you're a techie. What 3 apps in your phone can't you do without? M-Pesa. What 3 apps in your phone can't you do without?
This is on a daily basis. I'm a preference.
Munataka gani? Daily basis.
Daily basis. That's easy. That would be M-Pesa, M-Pesa app. In earlier stages of my life, I was a text. I would prefer texting more than calling. I have graduated.
You've grown.
So that would be then the call app and WhatsApp.
WhatsApp. Wow, that's dope, right? So thank you so much for making time for us. We had really missed you on these 4th streets. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your life. Thank you for your vulnerability. I'd just like you to give your parting shot, and probably on the parting shot, you can add in what would you advise the young William, age, tufanye Samaria age yenu, 25, 24, 23, 22-year-old Willie. What would you advise him, and your parting shot?
I think one of the things that advise a young version of me is, one of the things that happens when we are young, one of the things that I have learned growing up, when we were in primary school and high school and all these things, one of the things that was driven to our minds is you can become good at anything. And that really didn't help us to learn how to become good at one thing. It just gave us a lot of scattered minds and potential. One of the things I would tell the young version of me would be pick your lane and be good at your lane. Because where we are going, you either become good at one thing or you're not good at anything. You know, so, and it happens. Anytime we are young, we think, you can venture here, you can venture there, you can venture there. And the lie that we have of youth is that we have a lot of time. You get? To be honest, yes, we have a lot of time when we're young, but no, we don't also have a lot of time. Because if you can become good at one thing from 20 all the way to when you're 30 and 40, it means that you will become a genius, or you can become a voice and a statement in that one thing. I know English proverbs that told us don't put your eggs in one basket, and all that, but let me tell you the truth. Become good at that one thing. Let that one thing be. If they say, we want someone to do sound, you become the person. I have learned many things in ministry. I know how to do sound. I know how to do DJing. I have been a hype MC. And all these things, I did them when I was young. But I wish I would have just stuck to preaching and teaching and picked that. Because what that would have meant would have been, I'd have become the one of the best preachers.
Wow.
Yeah, so that would be the advice I tell myself. I think what I'd say in this regard, not all of us need mentors, by the way. Might be after this conversation, you think, now I need a mentor, I need a mentor, I need a mentor. Not all of us need mentors. Because if we have not yet defined what we want to see, then why do we need someone to help us see it? Because the purpose you need a mentor is to help you become the better version of yourself, not of their self. Because if I tag you along, I will make you another version of me. But if you come and ask me for help, it's because you know what you want to be, and this is the best person who is suited to help you become that thing. Are we together? Now, and if you can narrow down that line towards not needing many people, towards requiring people who will be instrumental in your life, then it's going to be more effective for you. Because if you have 5 mentors, how many conversations will you need to be having? 5 conversations. But you have 2 mentors that can mentor you over a broader aspect of life, then it becomes easy. Pastor Mark said when he was preaching that one of the grace that comes upon ministers and all that is that they can make people things. So I can make you something that I'm not. So if you can limit your sphere of the people that you need in your life, then the better. So that you just limit to that which is required of you for that level of life you're in. Set attainable goals and targets, and just pursue to become the best version of you. And even as you get confidence and friends and all that, never forget that you have one of the best friends that will never heartbreak you. It's called the Holy Spirit. You can have conversations with him. He will always listen and never speak unless you want to hear, because he's always speaking. It's just that we don't hear. And I believe get people that are going to help you become who you ought to become, and people who you are willing to listen to them even when they tell you no, and you very much know you want a yes. Because that's the problem with mentorship. Because if you're coming from mentorship and I tell you not to do something that you want to do, but you're looking for a neutral ground, and you end up not doing it, then please, let's stop our mentorship journey there. Because if you're not going to do what I know is best for you, and that I have been inspired is best for you, then there's no there's no respect there. Then there's no ground or basis for that relationship to happen. And I wish you all the best in life, even as you become, even as you are members of this church, who we are growing actively together. There are things you learn from people even without asking them to be your mentors. You don't need a mentor to learn from them. You can learn from your friends. You can learn from your age mates. You can learn from people who are above you, even without them being your mentors. So learn as much as you can. As Tasha said, you don't need to learn from experience. Learn from other people's experience. The Bible says, no temptation has overcome you, that's my last scripture, such as is common to man, but God will with the temptation provide a way of escape so that you may be able to bear it. But the key word in that scripture is in 1 Corinthians says, no temptation has overcome you such as is common to man. What that means simply is that there is nothing that you are going through that someone else has not gone through. And sometimes you feel good that at a challenge napitia, that kuna mtu mwingine amepitia hii challenge. And in you learning from how they overcame those challenges, you're able to apply that, and as it says, you're able to find a way through to trudge through it. So there are many things you don't need to learn from your own experience. Don't become an experience master. You can also earn XP points by learning from other people, and you still become the best and you're what you want to become.
Wow. Warm round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, to our speaker for the day. It has been such an amazing session. Thank your neighbor. In fact, clap for yourself for staying put with us till now. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Pastor William, for pouring your life, and even for walking with many of us here. We are testaments of the call of God on your life, right? Thank you so much. I don't know who will usher Pastor William. Thank you so much, guys. Sijui narudishia nani hapa mic. Could get used to this. Bado sijatuma salamu. Tunaenda kusalimia watu wa nyumbani.
Chia mic.
Peleka mbio sana. But thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. God bless you.
Amen. Let us appreciate Natasha. One more time, let us appreciate Pastor William. So the segment imekuwa so much informative. I don't intend to keep you for long. To announcement, and I'll be out of your way. Outside there, we are going to have a bite to corner snacks. So stuachie. And I'm being informed that kuna group photos according to your teams. So we'll have them right there. So usi this team, picha ni muhimu. At this juncture, I want us tukimaliza, I want us to do something very simple. Nani jina yake imeanza na S? Thank you, come. Kuja. Let us appreciate hers. Come. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
So, nataka tuombe tumalize.
Hi, everyone. Okay, let's pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you. We thank you for this moment, this evening, King of Glory, that you gave unto us, King of Glory. Thank you for everything that we have learned, King of Glory. I believe mindsets have been changed and people have digested enough, King of Glory, that, King of Glory, you're going to provide the right mentors into our lives, King of Glory. We thank you and we glorify your mighty holy name, even for the church, even for the people that planned for this to happen. We give you glory and we give you honor, King of Glory. For the snacks that you're going to take, King of Glory, we thank you for them. Bless them as we eat them, King of Glory. As we go home, King of Glory, guide each and every one of us, King of Glory. Protect us along the way. And we bless your name, we glorify your name till we meet again, King of Glory. We pray that in Jesus' name, believing and trusting.